Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with David Settle. He is the Wyoming Sportscaster of the Year with KOWB Radio. Well, thank you so much, David, for joining us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So I just have a few questions for you. First of all, let's start off with this is a hard one, the hardest one there will be. But what is something that no one knows about you that would be interesting to us at NSMA?
Oh gosh, yeah, that is a tough one to start with at 9:30 in the morning.
Oh, we can come back to it. We can come back to it.
No, I guess most people know that I'm passionate about sports, um, but and a lot of people would be interested to know that I have a totally different personality off the mic than on the mic. I am a
Wow.
very quiet, reserved individual. I like spending time with my family, my dog, my wife, my two kids. I don't do much, outside of just work and spending time with my family and whatever activities we have going on. Uh, and it was funny when I started in the job when I started working in radio over 20 years ago. I sat on the couch after getting the job and I was just kind of taking some notes and learning what the boss was telling me. And he told me a few weeks later, he's like, I didn't know what to expect out of you because you were really quiet. You just kind of sat there. You didn't really ask a lot of questions. And he said, but when you turned the mic on, it was like a switch flipped. And some people know that about me, but not a lot of people know that about me. I really am, I guess for lack of a better phrase, a homebody. and and I have a lot of passion and I don't mind talking to individuals, but I think, kind of rubbed people the wrong way just with my personality. I really am not an outgoing individual. I'm more a way more introverted. And in a
I,
business like this, you don't find a lot of us like that
I
because
can
you have to
imagine.
be, yeah, you have to be open to communication and dialogue. And I'll be honest with you, I just kind of like to go about my day and do my business. And I can't say that I go out of my way to, and it's not to try and rub people the wrong way. It's just
Yeah.
that's just the way I am. I'm just more kind of laid back and I'd rather just kind of do my own thing, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. But I'll hang out with the guys every once in a while. I'll do some things. I'll talk with some people, but sometimes it's just more of a hey, or if I'm really zoned in on something, sometimes I don't even see people or hear people, and they're like, "Well, didn't you see me, or didn't you see me wave to you?" And I'm like, "Nope." Totally got tunnel
Sorry.
vision on, not even paying attention. And it's weird because they'll be like, you were looking straight at me. And I was like, I was probably in a zone thinking
Mhm.
about something and it looked like I was looking at you, but I didn't even focus to see that it was actually you. And so that's probably, I guess, maybe the biggest thing is I am way more of an introvert than most people in the communication journalism industry because and it's been interesting for me to cultivate this through over 20 years in the business because I know I've had to open myself up, and I do, but you got to really get to know me a lot better.
That's a good answer. That's a great answer. Do you find that like you're really comfortable behind the microphone, or how do like?
I do. It's true. When my boss at the time, gosh, this is almost 23 years ago. He's like, you just it's like a switch just flipped, and I don't know what it is. I guess I just probably I want to say I was in junior high where I grew up. It was junior high. I was in middle school, and I was in ninth grade. That's when I wanted to get into radio broadcasting. I knew from before that I wanted to be a math teacher of all things. So I'm really good with numbers, which helps being in the sports industry and calling games and things like that. But I really kind of started in the junior high days, really getting interested and hooked on radio. I was an avid listener of a local sports talk show on one of our local radio stations where I grew up in Colorado. And
Mhm.
now I live and work in Wyoming. I've been here for a long time, but it's, I don't know, just seeing some of the things that went on, and I got to experience it a little bit in high school, seeing the behind the scenes things and kind of cultivate through college. And I was the same, probably even more introverted in college, which is really bizarre. And one of those few people that got in and out of college in 4 years nowadays, or at least I guess it was strange getting in and out even when I was going to school back in the 90s. But one of those situations where I found it a unique way, I guess, to kind of just bring myself out maybe a little more, to become a little more outgoing and not so much an introvert, to try and develop kind of a personality around it. And I can be brash, I can be boastful, I can be egotistical. I think a lot of us in the sports industry can be that way. But at the same time, that sometimes is more of my radio personality and not truly what I am in life overall. But I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to describe, because I think there is a switch that flipped, and I don't know necessarily what I attributed that to, other than just kind of maybe saying, all right, this is a chance for me to be a little different.
That's awesome. Good for you. And so I guess you kind of touched on junior high and that, but my next question is like, how did you get to the place that you are now? Like, what was your path, kind of linear? Did you always know that you wanted to do this and exactly this, or did it?
Well, kind of. I wanted something in sports, and from a small child, I think I started noticing this, honestly, which is weird. When I was like 4, 5, and 6, I used to memorize rosters and numbers of some of my favorite teams, and it just became kind of secondhand nature. And so I wanted something that went into that. And so, yeah, I talked about, possibly being a math teacher and things like that, because numbers did come pretty easy to me. And I was interested in, how does an average get to be an average in baseball, or, how do they determine points per game averages and different things, just different statistics that kind of come through math. And so math did come kind of easy to me. But yeah, it was really when I started listening to that sports talk show on the local radio station I grew up in. And most of my friends are listening to music on Walkman. I don't know how many people remember Walkmans back.
I do, barely. There you go. Barely. I'm 20, barely. So I think barely.
Yeah, I was on that Walkman, kind of slid into the CD era. So I still actually own cassette tapes and CDs. And, I now have digital music and everything. But long story short, I don't know what it was. It was something about listening to AM radio and guys talk about sports that really, I guess, I found a calling for, and I got interested in it. The guy who was kind of the precipice behind it, he had a couple different co-hosts, but he was one of my mentors, and he really kind of showed me the ropes. I did a few things when I was in high school, kind of lightly on the air. Let's use air quotes on that, lightly on the air, just kind of helping a couple guys at the radio station out. But they got to know me because I was constantly calling in to win trivia. And so these guys got to know me, and for whatever reason, maybe it was because I was hidden in a room in my house, but I was able to call and talk to these guys on the radio. And maybe that's how it helped me develop my radio personality, because nobody could see me, but they could hear me, and I could, throw out my own opinions and things like that. So it really started in junior high, and then 9th grade. Here's a story for you. I was at a high school football game, and I was with some buddies, and then I kind of just, they went and did a couple things with a few other people. I just kind of sat there, and I was in the stands, and it was the high school I was going to go to the next year, but this is in 9th grade. And so that's why Precipice junior high, because where I grew up, it was 7, 8, 9, and then high school was just 10, 11, 12.
Interesting.
And it's changed actually in my hometown since that point. But at the time, I was still in junior high in 9th grade. And so I was going into high school the next year, but I was just sitting in the stands, and I thought to myself, weird thing, I'm going to give this a try. I started calling the game in the stands with people around me that I had no clue who they were. And what really gave me the, I guess, impetus to get into the industry was not only the sports talk show, but there was a guy, I called the game, and I knew the kids on the high school team I was watching, but I didn't know the opposition. So I just called them by number, but I literally kind of did just an off the cuff, ad lib play by play of this high school game in ninth grade. And a professor who was at the big college in my town came up and gave me his card and he said, if you're interested in this, I think you got a future in this. And that's kind of when the light bulb went on. And then I
How
got more.
crazy.
I
That's
know.
crazy.
And I didn't even know the guy. I don't even know. I still might have his card somewhere, but I didn't want to go to that university. No offense, even though they were in my hometown, they weren't my favorite team, and I didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
And they're still kind of my nemesis as a sports fan, I guess. And where I work at, there's another university, and the professor that works at the university I don't like, they're our arch rival. So let's just put it that way. It makes it fun, I guess, to kind of throw this into the story. But yeah, when he came up to me after the game, I was like, oh my gosh, was I really doing what I hadn't even really realized that I was talking that loud that people around me in this big metal bleacher stadium could hear me, and let alone know that there was a radio broadcast going on up above in the booth. And I was away from that, so I don't think those guys heard me at all. But I got into radio. One of my mentors is a college play-by-play guy, full-time, does football and basketball, and he really helped me out in my high school career. I did an internship my senior year in high school with him because I knew that's what I wanted to go into. And then I got into college and I majored in broadcasting. I emphasized in radio, not TV, because no offense to the TV guys, I love what you do, but I just found radio more challenging because you got to paint that picture so that people can kind of visualize in their mind instead of just seeing it on the screen in front of them. You got to TV play-by-play versus radio play-by-play, two different avenues. I just love the challenge of radio play-by-play, and I still do to this day.
That's awesome. How cool is it that this guy literally comes up? That is so cool.
I was blown away by it. I'm this little old nobody just sitting in these metal bleachers, and this was a school district stadium, and we had 3 high schools where I grew up, and so everybody played there. And we were playing the school I was going into, and like I said, I was at the game with some buddies, and we were hanging out. And they went off, and so I just kind of sat there and just kind of started going off. We were playing a team in our league that wasn't from the same town. And so I didn't know them. Like I said, I didn't know them as well. Right. I didn't have a program. I'm just calling them by jersey numbers, but I know some of the guys because I paid attention to these guys. I was just one of those sports nerds. And I still refer to myself as a sports geek or a sports nerd because I'm just that way. Sports just has been ingrained in my life for a long time. Like I said, going back to that memorizing rosters and stats when I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, all the way. And I still do that to this day. But it was crazy that guy took time to give me his business card and thought, you might have a future in this. And so that's kind of when the light bulb popped on. I switched my focus from math into, I want to get into sports radio broadcasting. And I've been in the industry since I got out of college, and it's just a passion. I love it. I really do.
Did you ever play? Did you play baseball?
Yeah, no, I played basketball. Well, when I was younger, I did everything. I did football, basketball, baseball, and I ran track. As I got older, it got to be basketball and track. And I got to be fairly good at those. And then I did walk on 1 year to play basketball in college at a Division I institution.
Wow. That's legit.
That is a challenge. Oh my gosh. And I kind of happened to be in the right place at the right time. I got to cultivate some relationships with a couple of the assistant coaches, so that did help out. And then, a couple different various reasons it didn't work out, but that's okay. I knew the guys on the team. I was never really bitter about it. I just knew, hey, my time playing sports was up. Let's get on to my path to a career, and it did kind of help me take off in that direction.
I played field hockey here at Wake for my freshman and sophomore year, and also left the team. So I kind of get it. There's no bitterness. It was such a cool experience, but there's also other stuff I want to do.
Oh yeah. Being a walk-on was unbelievable. I didn't quite know what to expect. And I had some other options where I probably could have gone and played smaller. And maybe if I would have pursued actually playing a little bit more, I probably could have done that. I think I got in and I gave the chance to walk on a big opportunity, and I gave it a shot. It didn't work out for various reasons. I wasn't bummed about it. I mean, I kind of was at the time, but I look back on it, I'm not really bummed. I got on to what I wanted to do and with my life, and I've been in the industry ever since, and I love it. I still do to this day. I wouldn't change that decision back in ninth grade to switch my focus from being a teacher. And I have a lot of love for teachers because I had some great teachers growing up and even in college, professors. But I love the radio broadcast industry, and I have through all this time.
Well, my final question for you is kind of what does the future entail for you? Do you have any big plans? Do you know? or are you content and happy and
I am happy with what I'm doing. My job has changed so much in 2 decades. I mean, literally when I got into radio, we were still using 8-track carts, cassettes. Then we went to mini disc, which not many people know what those are, kind of in correlation with CD.
Okay.
Mini disc was like a little digital thing. It was supposed to be the next step from CDs, and it was like a better digital version of a cassette tape that you could record on. And this was before, I guess, writable CDs. And so we went to that, and then now we're on to the digital age. But things have changed so much. You know, my job, I changed my job almost 2 years ago now. I manage a high school sports website in the state that I work in. I still do play-by-play, and that is a challenge. I do play-by-play, and I still try and run this high school sports website. And there's only a few of us in a big state of Wyoming, and we can't get everywhere all the time. Trust me. You know, based upon our budget and different factors, it can be challenging. There are complaints and things like that I deal with, and I understand because we don't get to every place all the time.
Right.
But I love it because I have a passion for high school sports. Before I took that job, I was pretty much kind of ingrained in the one job I had for about 20 years. And I love it because of the relationships at the local level. I worked with coaches at the local college and at our high school. And when I took this job, I kind of tweaked it in my first couple of years and really focused in on things locally, less national, less regional. I really wanted to focus in because it was at that time where the internet was really starting to pop. And I was like, you can find your scores of this team and this team and this team. And it wasn't like I was trying to ignore the national scene, but I really wanted to focus in and give the local community love for the local things that happen here. And so I really cultivated that for a couple decades. And now it's a little bit different because I've had to broaden my landscape a little bit. I still do local play-by-play. And I don't think a lot of people realize that around the state. They think, oh, this guy took over as the manager of Wild Preps. Why aren't things done the same way they were the years before? Mm-hmm. Well, that's because I've got a couple people that help me out, but I'm on the air for, 4.5, 5 hours for a high school football game on a Friday when all these results from tennis, cross country, swimming, volleyball, other football games are coming in. So I rely upon various people to help me out, but there's not a lot of us. And so we get to it as best we can. I'm not trying to make excuses. It's just one of those things that I was asked if I didn't, take this responsibility on. I thought about it and I said, yeah, absolutely, because of my passion for high school sports. And so I do that, but I still do work in radio and I do the play-by-play. And I actually added to my play-by-play. I do football, boys and girls basketball. I do baseball because here in the state of Wyoming, we don't have high school baseball. We're one of 3 states in the country that don't have high school baseball. So it's big in Legion baseball, American Legion baseball in the summer. And if anybody knows American Legion baseball down in your parts, the Legion World Series is in Shelby, North Carolina every year. And so, and a team from Wyoming's never been, come close a few times in the last couple decades, but nobody from Wyoming's ever been to the American Legion Baseball World Series in Shelby, North Carolina. But it's one of those situations where Legion Baseball is big. They actually start kind of right now and go through early August.
Wow.
And I think the Legion World Series is kind of early to mid-August, but Legion Baseball is big. And then just last school year, they passed the addition of high school softball in the state. And so this spring is the first one. And so I just added doing high school softball games. In fact, because of some weather postponements and cancellations, and Wyoming's known for its weather, especially in the springtime, you can get anything. And it was snowing yesterday and snowing again today, after being like 60 degrees over the weekend. So you get varying things, but had my first few high school softball games canceled or postponed because of the weather. And so I just did my first 2 ever last Friday and Saturday. It was
How
awesome.
was it?
It was awesome. It was
Good for
fun. It
you.
was so much fun. You know, it's very comparable to doing baseball, but it's just different because it's softball. The good news is, I had some parents who grew up working softball games. My dad was a longtime football, baseball, or not football, baseball, football and softball official. He also did a little bit of basketball.
Yep.
And so I kind of grew up around softball, and he did softball like junior Olympic girls fast pitch softball and high school fast pitch softball. So I kind of grew up around that. And my mom and my sisters did scorekeeping, or they were like the supervisor aspect. So I kind of grew up around it. So I've known that has aided me in calling baseball and softball games because I know the positions, I know how the game flows. And so, and my youngest daughter now plays not high school softball, but she plays lower level softball and is on a travel team. And so it's, even though in my first 2 games, it wasn't necessarily a foreign concept to call a softball game. It's just different than baseball, but it was cool. It was so much fun. I had a blast.
Awesome.
I had a blast.
More games coming up?
Yeah. Well, based upon the snow, looks like tomorrow and Saturday's games are going to be postponed. So we've got 4 more games. We got 4 more games. We got a total of 4 games to make up. We had a major snowstorm right at the end of our state high school basketball tournament.
Yep.
That we were supposed to have. State basketball ended 1 week, and the next week was the start of track, soccer, and softball season. And there were a few soccer matches played and a few track events that happened, but softball was supposed to be in one place that got 30 inches of snow. So they got canceled, and they because of the tightly packed schedule, they're not making that up. And then snow melt was kind of slow. So the next weekend, there were some teams that did get to play softball because there were different parts of the state that didn't get as much snow or any snow at all out of the same storm. But where we were supposed to play, it was still melting, so the field conditions weren't ready. So, yeah, we've got to make up 4 games now. Probably, I'm just waiting for confirmation from the local high school AD here in Laramie, Wyoming, about postponements for Friday and Saturday. It happens. It's springtime in Wyoming. You wait 10 minutes and the weather changes. I mean, yesterday it dumped probably 3 to 4 inches, and then it warmed up to about 32, 35 degrees and melted most of it. And then it was snowing when I got up this morning because I worked a little bit late last night because I kind of make my own schedule being the boss of a website.
Good.
I was actually doing a bunch of soccer stats for teams across the state because we track some things that most places don't. But I was doing that, and I got up and I look outside and it's snowing, and then I look outside right now from the radio station I'm at, and wasn't snowing when I came into work, but it is right now.
Oh.
It happens. We're supposed to get anywhere from 4 to 8 inches.
Okay.
And the interstate around us was closed yesterday and was closed earlier this morning, and it was back open, but it could probably be closed again.
It's mid-April.
Yeah. Well, there's a stretch on Interstate 80. If you get out a map, Interstate 80 comes right through where I live, and there's about a 100-mile stretch that is, I believe, the most closed stretch of highway in the entire country, period, because of snowstorms and the wind that blows across here. I'm thankful for the wind. The wind is terrible at sometimes, but I tell you what, it gives us fresh, clean air. So I'm okay with that out here in the Rocky Mountains.
I bet it's nice. Well, thank you so much for your time, everyone. Thanks for watching.